So far we've talked about virtualization mainly from a physical point of view, the hardware point of view and the operating system point of view. The other thing that you talked about when we were in Boston was from an application point of view. Can you hit a little bit about, talk a little bit about application virtualization?
So if I can virtualize my servers, and typically today, every application just about needs its own server. So as we've moved from centralized everything in the data center and we've distributed that back out, that's requiring the end customer to buy a server for every one of those applications.
Right.
So if I can actually layer in, and that's part of this overall architecture and strategy is to layer in those applications on a common server platform from a hardware and a software perspective, then I can take that application that no longer has to live in the edge customer environment on a separate server platform. I can actually put it and move it into a corporate data center.
Right.
I can move it to an alternate data center. I can move it into the cloud so that I can move that application around depending on the needs of the customer. And maybe I can lower the overall cost, particularly in retail where cost is pretty important to them.
Right.
I can actually move that application somewhere else. And how many applications do I have running in a classic retail store? We have a ton of applications running there. If I can centralize them, I can move them and I can combine them, I think that brings a lot of value back to the customer.
When I heard this up in Boston, this virtualization of the application is the one that actually caught my mind the most, because I think this could put many of our VARs at risk in their business model. Our VARs have tended to be edge device type VARs. They were focused on the solution and the application at the edge device. And so now we're talking about the possibility of moving that application onto the network. And so for a VAR that has had a business model that has been more endpoint focused, what type of advice would you give them? What do you think that they should do to be able to play in this new world of application and physical virtualization?
Right. Well, I think number one is understand what's going on in this virtualized world, what we're really talking about. Really get knowledgeable, and we'll talk later a little bit where they can get some information about that. But understand that. But I really think they need to get familiar with the network, because if I look at both collaboration and virtualization, they are driving the need for a very robust network. And I think they're missing an opportunity if they don't look at that overall holistic network and say, how do I understand that network a little bit better? So I think that's number one, is understand where this is going from a virtualization perspective.
Right.
So if they're building the edge devices, right? If they're building the edge devices, it's figure out, how do I leverage cloud computing? How do I leverage virtualized data centers? And so if I'm building that edge device, I might want to think about that could be a real value proposition for me moving forward in this kind of, it's almost like the intelligence is moving back into the network a bit, from the edge device. So got to understand the network, got to understand this trend, and see how it applies to your individual business.